Hi everyone, and welcome to the final part, the fifth part of this five-part series, where I've been looking at the draws for the World Championships, for this year's World Championship, World Badminton Championships, to be more precise, in case you've clicked on this thinking it's about another sport. On each episode, I've gone through the 5 disciplines, and today is the last one on that list, which is the men's singles. I've left the most difficult one for last when it comes to predicting. The men's singles is so open. You only have to look. If you look at the Super 500s and above, the winners and the finalists, we've had 11 different nationalities, 9 different winners, 9 different runner-ups, and only one player from that is actually not playing in Delhi, and that is Dong Tian Yao of China. It's just incredibly open. And if you just consider last year, we had a huge surprise in Victor Lai from Canada, who will be coming in this year looking ready to try and match that, if not go better. We've got some other players I think are making the debut that I think personally could do very well indeed. We could see another Victor Lai story. It is possible. Also, I think what makes it even more difficult is that, say, if I use last year, I'll get to this soon, but a lot of the top seeds coming in pretty good form. They'd shown why they are world number 1, 2, 3, 4. This year, there's doubts against pretty much everyone, especially the top 4 players in the world. So it is very difficult. But going to get into the draw, as always, with the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to look at each quarter. So we've got the top quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and bottom quarter. After each quarter, which I usually break into 2 halves, I'll give my predictions. At the end, I will then obviously repeat that, as well as give you a dark horse or 2. I think I'm going to have to go with 2 dark horses in the men's singles this year. There's 2 that stand out to me that I can't quite pick between. So, top quarter. You don't have to look far in the men's singles draw. Pretty much right at the top. Actually, right at the top. I don't know why pretty much. It is right at the top. To see a match that jumps out at you. And that is the world number 1, the reigning champion, Chi, against India's rising superstar, Ayush Shetty. This is the current world champion, world number 1, like I said, versus the current Asia Championship silver medalist. When I saw this draw come out, I was somewhat transported back to last year, where Chi was also top seed. Had to face another tricky Indian in his opening round against Lakshya Sen. He won that one, but can he do it again this year? Obviously, Lakshya and Ayush have completely different styles and builds. But it's also a different Chi this year. Last year, he came in on good form, having won both the Japan Open and the China Open. This year, he only reached the quarterfinals of both of those, as well as he had some early exits in previous tournaments. He also suffered his first defeat at the China Open to Cho Chen in 10 meetings. And Cho Chen does happen to be in his quarter final here at the World Champs. So if you're a Chi fan and you're looking for him to regain the title, it's not looking as positive or as rosy as it was last year. There also, what makes it even less rosy is the fact there are some injury concerns, namely his shoulder. He had a back injury at the beginning of this year too. Now, in Japan and China, I felt that he looked okay, a bit hit and miss, which did make me wonder whether he was training through those 2 tournaments. One day he looked pretty quick and light on his feet. The other day he looked a little heavy. But I'll be honest, Chi is quite difficult to get a read on. But he's going to be definitely put to the test right away against Ayush Shetty. So we're going to get an answer to what sort of Chi will we see at this World Championships right away. For Ayush, obviously this is quite a test. It's going to be his World Championship debut, and he's got the home crowd as well. So, how's he going to handle the home crowd in his debut World Championships? That's quite a lot. And then add to that fact he's facing the defending champion. That's quite a lot of things for him on his young shoulders to take in. And I think whilst he's had some stellar results this year and some great performances, will Chi's experience pay off? And will just all those different scenarios, all those different factors I just mentioned, be a little bit too much for Ayush to take? I think maybe the fact that he will be underdog might help him a little bit. I think he sometimes can raise his game pretty well. And even if he was to beat Chi, the draw doesn't get all too much easier for him. as he's either going to face, most likely, Awi Farhan of Indonesia, the 11th seed, or the new Korean boy on the block, Yu Tae Bim. That does obviously lead nicely to go down the draw to the next match that really stands out, which is between Awi Farhan and Yu Tae Bin. I think Awi Farhan might quite revel in being in this section of the draw. He beat Xu Qi not long ago in Singapore and has a positive head-to-head against Ayash. He's also got wins over the players in the rest of the quarter-final this year, Cho Chin Chen, Weng Hongyang and Yushi Tanaka. But I do think his first round will be a huge test against Yu Tae Bin of Korea. They've never faced, and Tae Bin is going to come in hot, having reached the Taipei Open final, and then a bit like Taguchi and Watanabe in the mixed doubles, is also in the final of the Korean Masters, which obviously by the time this video comes out had been played, but as a recording, hasn't been. He's improving so quickly as Yu Tae Bin. The more tournaments, and as a result, I think the fact that he's young as well, I think the more tournaments will benefit him, not hinder him. As he is young, the confidence will mean a lot, and I think he stands a good chance of potentially upsetting Awi Farhan in the opening round. In Awi's favour, though, for me, I think he's someone that can rise to the big occasions. He almost beat Kunlevut last year in the World Championships. He lost 20-20 in the third, and he can step up at big events. The Indonesian Masters earlier this year, the Super 500, he won on home soil, which he's one of the only players, I think, who's actually won a tournament on home soil this year. I think most other people that have played on their home soil have struggled with the pressures that come in the men's singles. Even more so, I think, at that Indonesian Masters, a lot of the other Indonesian players did fall quite early. So the fact he set up there was quite impressive. And I think the fact, combined with the fact this is Yu Tae Bin's debut at World Championships, that does give him a slight edge. Style-wise, I think it's a pretty good match as well. Yu Tae Bin has, for me, the better net, but Awi Farhan has more raw speed and might possibly be able to unsettle the Korean. I said this, actually did an Instagram post earlier today, and saying that the more I watch Yu Tae Bin, the more he reminds me the way that he technically and he approaches and how he links certain shots together. It reminds me a lot of Jonathan Christie. So maybe Awi Farhan, this is their first meeting, might feel quite comfortable or feel this seems quite familiar. I know it's a bit of an off comment to make, but you never know. So yeah, no, I think that's a really interesting top section. Two huge opening matches, and both matches for me are relatively difficult to call, although I would obviously give the slight edge to both the seeds in that. Looking at the bottom section of the draw, we have another crazy first round. Weng Hongyang versus Yushi Tanaka. Weng Hongyang does have the head-to-head advantage, but it is only 1-0, and it's always quite hard for me to look into head-to-heads when it's only 1-0 because there's so many other things. And I think always head-to-heads, sometimes you look at it and sometimes you can miss certain context. Victor Lai actually said that to me. I brought up something that he'd beaten Brian Yang when he got to the Can Open final last year. And I was like, it's a great win. It was your first win. It gave confidence. He's like, yeah, but Brian Yang got to the final the week before. And I completely overlooked that fact. It's sometimes, we can't just look at statistics without context. But for me, with Weng Hongyang, he's a little bit like Xiu Qi plus in the fact that you really don't know what you're going to get. He is an amazing left-handed attacking player, combined with, for me, frightening foot speed. But sometimes he can look like someone who doesn't have a plan and can't keep it in. He's not alone in the men's singles category, but certainly a player who can have a blistering week and then have a lot of average weeks. So which Weng Hongyang are we going to see? He looked pretty decent in China, nothing outrageous. But yeah, it's hard to always call with him. For Tanaka, obviously he was absolutely sublime in Japan, reaching the semi-finals. For me, when he was at his best, he was the best player in the tournament. Just seems to lack true belief that he can win in crunch matches. And I've written a question here, will this come up again against Weng Hongyang, or maybe even further down the line? I love watching both players play. And if both really come at it, go on the front foot, it's going to be a real battle for who can gain the attacking advantage. Rounding out that bottom part of the top quarter is obviously Cho Chin Chen, the 36-year-old legend who created even more history recently by winning the China Open. He's playing in his 11th World Championship Championships. He finally got to the medals back in 2022 with that epic comeback against Christie. I think he's going to have a lot of attention on him because of what he did in China. And I think obviously if he plays like that, then he certainly has his chances. His only negative head-to-head is against Xu Qi and Wang Hongyang, so against both of his Chinese potential opponents. But he did obviously beat Xu Qi en route to winning China, his first win in 10 years. And he hasn't played Wang Hongyang since 2024. I think those are the big names that I've mentioned in that section. Xu Qi, Shetty, Aoi Farhan, Yu Bin, Cho Chin Chen, Wei Hongyang, and Yushi Tanaka. They'll be the big names that people will spot. But if I add one other player that I think we shouldn't sleep on too much is Joachim Aldorf of Finland, a former European bronze medalist, beat Lung Junhao in the Thomas Cup. He's certainly a player that on his day can give trouble to some of these players. And he would face, if he gets through his first round, the winner of Farhan versus Yu Bin. Now, prediction-wise, when I did my notes, I did the men's singles first. And actually, I written 3 down. I actually got 4 from this section. Initially, for my picks, I had Xi Qi, Farhan, and Cho Chi Chen. I think the reason I did that was I'd forgotten that I only pick one player to the semis, and because the graphic I'm using is broke up into further sections, I did it. But I'm going to pick. I've picked Aoi Farhan. Putting my faith in these lower ranked, lower seeded Indonesians. I did it with Indra and Joaquin in the men's doubles. So I'm going to go with Aoi Farhan. Yeah, I think he has the ability to handle pressure. Yeah, it wasn't too great in the Thomas Cup, but in the other big events he has stepped up. Indonesian Masters on home soil. Only one of the few players to do so at home. And some other runs. He beat Cho Chin Chen at the All England this year. And I think I would usually pick Xu Qi. And I'd love to pick Xu Qi, and he could easily come out and just go and be an absolute beast. But Farhan has beaten all the players in here. He obviously hasn't played Yu Bin before, but he beat Xu Qi in Singapore as well. I think Xu Qi's going to be in better form than that, but it's just the confidence, and Farhan's certainly a confidence player. If he can get over the first hurdle, which is a tough hurdle against Yu Bin, I think having a tough first round, if he can battle through that can really set him up and help him kind of get through the rest of the draw. But it's an incredibly hard quarter. What's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players that have all reached finals or semis of big tournaments or won big tournaments. It's a tough section, and actually leads nicely on to the second section, which if I had to pick is kind of the opposite. For me, if I had to pick an easiest quarter in the men's singles, it might just be this bottom part of the top half. Crazy to say, but let me explain. Anders Andersen is the highest seed, 4th, and whilst he's very experienced at the Worlds with the silver and 3 bronze medals, I do also feel that when it comes to these sort of events, he ends up trying too hard. I do feel his own desire can sometimes get in his way and be his downfall. I've seen him do it in Thomas Cup campaigns, and if you look at his semi-final performances in those 3 bronze medals that he's won, usually his worst performances come in the semi-finals. What I will say about Anders actually, and it's quite funny, someone pointed it out in a comment towards me, it'd be funny if he was finally able to win a world title in a venue which he has actively missed the past few years due to pollution. Anders has, I think, missed the last, 3, 4 India Opens and he's always cited that the pollution's no good for his allergies and all that stuff. But obviously, he is turning out to Delhi because it's the world's slightly bigger tournament. So if he is able to finally get a world title, something that I know he's desperate to do, and he's to do it in this venue, there would be a bit of irony and a bit of funny. That would be quite a funny story. And I think looking at the draw, I think, like I said, personally, weakest section of the men's singles. I think he has a great chance to make the medal rounds again. In his top section, you can't overlook Nat Nguyen, who reached the quarterfinals, the China Open, and also beat Cho Chin Chen in Japan. Although I must say, Nat Nguyen's first round against Arya Donata of Croatia, who another former European medalist, that's an awkward, tricky first round. Nat will be the favourite based on current form, but who knows? That would be quite an interesting battle. But beyond that, the seed in Anna's section is Toma Junior Popov, who Anna's has never lost to in their 13 meetings. It has gone to 3 a few times, and Toma will be coming in confident after his run to the final in China. But still, it's all pretty much Europeans in this section, and the two missing that give him the most trouble. The two Europeans missing, I must add, Christo and Alex, are in the opposite half of the draw. It must feel, I think Anderson would have seen that draw and been going, yes, this is, I've got good chances here, which again might affect him. Who knows? But on the face of it, I think he'll be happy with that draw. Talking of Toma Junior Popov, I said he will come in confident because of the China Open results, but I think I can imagine his camp with his brother was a positive one because Christo also won in Japan the week before, so those two will be riding high and believing in themselves. I also think the Thomas Cup run, which both of them played a huge part in, which was also a World Championships, let's not forget World Men's Team Championships, that just adds to it. They really are riding a good wave. He will need all of that, like I said, with that 13-0 head-to-head down against Anna's. And on top of that, he's lost his last 5 to Li Shifang and lost his last 4 to Kodai, who are in his quarter of the draw. So it's not a great draw for Toma Junior Popov, but if there's ever a chance for him, ever a time for him to deliver wins, who knows? At the Thomas Cup, he had never beaten Koki Watanabe before, and he beat him in their quarterfinal. So he got a first win at a big major tournament earlier this year. Maybe he's going to do the same here at the World Championships. And then for me, if you look at the rest of the quarter, so the little bop section on the graphic, you will see the 2 seeds there. The 2 main players are Li Shifang and Kodai Naruoka. They are phenomenal players, but if I link it back to Anders Andersen, he has a positive head-to-head against them, and they aren't exactly coming in absolutely flying, especially Li Shifang. I know Li Shifang has had back issues, plus his rolled his ankle last year at the World Tour Finals, and that took a while to come back. And I think it's something, his back injury is something that he's admitted that he needs to live with. So it's never going to be fully fit. And I think this has clearly affected him, as I don't think there are many, and as a result, I don't think many are expecting too much from him. If he has a week where his body complies with him, then that'll certainly change my mind. It happened at the Malaysian Masters earlier this year, where he won, but I've only seen it happen a couple of times this year, so the chances of it happening for me are pretty slim. As for Kodai, he is a former world medalist and showed a decent level in Japan, reaching the semis, and I think he'll be happy to be in this section of the draw, to be honest. My question for him is, what style are we going to see? Are we going to see the attacking Kodai or the floating around the court, rallying it Kodai? I actually think somewhere in the middle is what's best for him, but he certainly needs to go on the attack. When he does and he can use his speed, he is much more effective. But Kodai's been in the world final, like I said, so he knows what it takes. And I think that I've always said this ever since I started doing these prediction videos, the experience of getting deep in these majors. And obviously some players come out of nowhere, and there's always a first time for something. So you always got to have your first time. But I think experience does play a part. I think rounding out this quarter, I've already mentioned Nat Nguyen and Aria Donata in the top little bit, but in the bottom bit, you also have Lung Junhao and Chi Yu-jen. I'd even give a mention to Harry Wang right at the bottom, who I think is capable of a high level. Chi Yu-jen has reached some semis in the World Tour, beaten players like Christo this year. He's a good physical player who has a good top game. And I say Lung Junhao is similar. Had some confidence issues early this year, especially at the Thomas Cup. He had a dreadful time there, but does seem as of late to be refinding something. He will play with no pressure, and whilst he is 1-8 with Li Shifang, who knows with Li Shifang, if he can get through that, and he happens to come up against either Kodai or Chi Yu-jen, then he actually has a positive head-to-head against both of them. So maybe actually I might detract what I said about Kodai being happy with the draw. I think he'll be hoping it isn't Lung Junhao that makes it through. But yeah, no, potentially Lung Junhao can't be overlooked. I said with Li Shifang, we're never quite sure what we're going to get. And him having a positive head against Naruoka and Chi Yu-jen, there are chances for the man from Malaysia to get to the quarterfinals. And then who knows from then. But my prediction, I have gone for Anders Antonsen. He is the highest seed. obviously he does seem to. He's got the crazy head-to-head advance against Tomo Jr. He's got experience. He can raise his game at big times. He's a bit, he loves these kind of environments. And when he does have his slip up at these majors, it's at the semis, which obviously I'm not predicting past. So getting to the semis, he's shown that he can do it pretty consistently. And I think he's going to do the same again. If he gets the semis, that could be quite tricky for him. That'll be the big test when it comes to Anna's Antonsen. Right, moving on. Third quarter. Now, for me, what's interesting, what really stood out to me about this section is if you consider where the worlds are being played, it's a very crazy section because at the India Open early this year, the 4 semi-finalists are all in this section. Lo Qian-yu, Jonathan Christie, Lin Chunyi, and Victor Lai. And I actually feel all 4 players are in different places compared to the India Open earlier this year. For Lo Qian-yu, he reached the final of his home event in Singapore recently, but following that, he did strain his stomach in Indonesia. So I'm not quite sure what fully fitness, and he didn't seem to be showing any issues in Japan or China. Played okay, didn't get any like noticeable wins. But and in fact in China he did lose to Brian Yang, which actually, funnily enough, is the player that he's drawn against in the first round. So a tough opener for Lo Qian-yu. But if he does manage to get through that, the draw is still tough. 3-3 with his likely next round opponent in Lee Chuk-yu, who is an attacking player who's one of the most dangerous unseeded players in the draw. After that, it is seeding-wise Victor Lai, the player who beat him in the quarterfinals last year. It's the only time that they have faced. And if he gets to the quarterfinals, then the 2 seeds are Lin Chunyi and Jonathan Christie, 2 players he has never beaten. 3-0 to Chunyi and 10-0 to Jonathan Christie. Although both those players do have their own question marks, but I'll get onto that in a second. So it's a tough draw for the world champion from 2021. But Lo Qian-yu is always a dangerous player. Last year, when I spoke to Victor Lai, I did an interview with him recently. He said that Lo Qian-yu came in off the back of illness into last year, and he reached the quarterfinals. And so who's to say that, yeah, he's had his injury issue in Indonesia, looked okay in Japan and China, but he did get to the final in Singapore. So, if we see Lo Qian-yu, like he's one of those other players that he can play absolutely brilliantly 1 minute, can be off the boil the next, and he can also do that within a match itself. But yeah, he's a danger player, wildly inconsistent at times, but if he finds his game, you just never know. Also, like I said, he will have good memories from India earlier this year. And lastly, he's a former champion. That is something. For Victor Lai, he's the next seed in this top part of this third section. And like I said, he's the next player who also reached the semis in India, losing to Lin Chunyi 22-20 in the third. But he's different because I think he's in a completely different headspace compared to then, as that India Open was his first World Tour semi-final, at that level. If you obviously don't look at the World Championships, which isn't a World Tour event, which he did get to the semis, that India Open was a bit of a breakthrough event because it was his first time on the World Tour, especially at the 750s. I think it was even his first real 750 that he reached the semi-finals. And then since then, he has gone on to reach the semi-finals of the All England, semi-finals of the China Open, both Super 1000s, and he won a Super 1000 in Indonesia. I interviewed him recently. You might have seen that on the channel, and he is confident in his abilities, and I think he is one of the most consistent players in men's singles when it comes to the biggest tournaments, so the Super 1000s. He has big tournament player written all over him. But like Lo Qian-yu, he has a tough opening round as he faces Jun Hyuk Jin of Korea, a player who's been around a long time. And actually, earlier this year at the Thailand Masters, Jun Hyuk Jin defeated Victor Lai. So I'm sure that will make Victor a little bit nervous, because actually it was Victor Lai's win over Jun Hyuk Jin at the Sudirman Cup last year that gave him, it's one of the results that gave him confidence going into the World Championships. So maybe the opposite might be true. And I think when it comes to the Victor Lai section, or very little section, we can't obviously overlook an absolute legend, a potential second round opponent in Kevin Corden of Guatemala. Yeah, Kevin actually holds a 6-1 positive head-to-head against Victor, but most of those were when Victor was a lot younger, and that one was the last time that they faced when Victor won rather convincingly. But Kevin has sprung surprises before. 2011 Worlds against Chen Long, and his run at the Olympics in Tokyo. But obviously he's a lot older now, and the chances of him doing it again are a little slim, but you can never rule it out. Last thing about Victor, a few did point to his knee in China or the fact that he rolled his ankle in Canada. But he told me that he all is 100%, so I expect a fully fit Victor in Delhi. In the bottom half, the 2 seeds and the 2 remaining India Open semi-finalists are Lin Chunyi and Jonathan Christie, the 2 players that actually face each other in the final in India. And again, they are also in completely different spaces compared to January. For Lin Chunyi, he went on to win the All England. He actually won in India as well, but following the All England, he sustained an injury to his hamstring, which has massively hampered him ever since. But in the last couple of tournaments, he seems to be over that. In China, for me, he looked like the injury was no longer an issue, but he just was at like 75% fitness. He wasn't able to, the All England, his attack was absolutely blistering. Considering it was a slow haul, he won with an attacking game. But he just, in China, we saw glimpses of that, but not as consistent. You could certainly see that he had to go through moments where he conserved his energy. If he is built on that and he's close to 100%, then he's going to be a huge pick for the whole tournament. But the question is, can he? I said this before, I actually think he'll be 100% for the Asian Games, not the World Championships, but he certainly could still be dangerous for the Worlds. His draw isn't easy though. You got Justin Ho in the first round, who's been steadily improving, and I think is also starting to re-find a little bit of confidence and form after another player that had a bit of a disastrous Thomas Cup. And if he's to come through that, he has the winner of Gemke and Karagi, 2 very nice players. Gemke certainly has plenty of experience and someone who also beat 3-time world finalist Kunut recently in China. And rounding out for Jonathan Christie, well, he's always been a little bit up and down with a crazy high game, but his lows can be low. If you look at results recently, he hasn't been too bad, especially reaching the final of the Indonesia Open. But it was after that final where he said he might need to take a break from badminton. Obviously, he hasn't done that. But that points to me that there's some psychological issues going on. In that final, he certainly didn't show his usual full fighting spirit in that second game against Victor Lai. That was actually something Victor even did say to me. So hard to get a good read on Christie. I'm sure he'll be wanting a world medal. He came so close in 2022. I think squandered 5 match points against Cho in the quarters. And it is outside of the Olympics his only major medal that's missing, but it's not going to be easy. He has good head-to-heads over most of the players, but the 2 dangermen, Lin Chunyi and Victor, not so good head-to-heads. He's lost both times to Victor Lai, and obviously one of them being that Indonesian Open final. And whilst it's 3-all with Lin Chunyi, he's lost the last 3, including the final in January. So prediction-wise, for me, the way I looked at this section overall, it was between, I think, Victor and Lin Chunyi. I've highlighted Victor, though. I'm going to go with the man I interviewed recently. He has a tough opening match against Jun Hyuk Jin, who beat him earlier this year. He might have last year on his mind. He did admit to me that last year he obviously played with complete freedom, wasn't expecting much. He doubt he's going to be able to do the same this year. But I feel he is someone who can take that and use it for the good. He has a good advantage over most of the others in his section. And like I said, I think he's just got big tournament player written all over him. What I will add, my other player was Lin Chunyi. You know why I picked Victor. Just a little bit of doubts over whether Lin Chunyi is going to be absolutely on his 100% attacking game. But I think if Lin Chunyi is 90% or higher, possibly that could change my mind. But I think because I am doubtful of that, I'm going to go with Victor Lai in that third quarter. And last quarter, I actually personally think this might be the toughest section of the draw if I had to pick one. There aren't any easy ones, but this one stands out a little, especially the top section of it, that top little bit on the graphic, if you look at it now. Pretty damn tough. Actually, maybe the toughest draw for one of the pre-tournament favourites is for Christo Popov. After his win in Japan, combined with his performances leading France at Thomas Cup, his European Championship win, his World Tour Finals win at the end of last year, he is a player that now has the belief that he can win the biggest titles. But from the word go, he's going to have it tough. Kenta Nishimoto in the first round, a player who always gives it everything no matter what, vast experience, and he won't give up. Also, I know they haven't faced since 2023, but Nishimoto did win their only encounter. Probably shouldn't count. That's 3 years have passed and both players are in different positions, but it'll be certainly something that will be on, I think, Christo's mind. If he comes through that, he'll likely face Kar Long, another vastly experienced player who has the capability of bringing a very high level. Christie has beaten him twice, though, so a little bit more, probably a bit more confidence going into that. But still, two very established, very experienced players that aren't going to roll over, they're going to make life difficult. You know, you can see it somewhat as a blessing if you can win those. You've got tough matches from the word go, and you can really build on that. Sometimes having easy rounds or easier rounds early, not always the best thing, but still difficult speed bumps. And if Christo comes through that, then probably either an encounter with his compatriot Alex Lanier, the number 9 seed, which, you know, if you're playing your fellow countrymen, even if you don't train together, they don't train together, it's never easy. Or against Thailand's Panichapon Teratsikon, who, to me, alongside Yushi Tanaka, I think is the best unseeded player on the draw. Panichapon has also beaten Christo this year. If Christo makes it through that, then likely Lakshya Sen or Kunavitasan, two hugely experienced players, each with good records against Christo Popov. So it's a very difficult draw for the Frenchman. It is tough, but if there is a player who can dog it through round after round, I think Christo is someone who can. He is certainly capable of finding his high level day after day. He showed that at the Thomas Cup, and I'd argue that that event would have been mentally even more exhausting. I said it before, the Popov camp must have been a very positive one, so I'm expecting a good level from Christo Popov. Maybe too many expectations can be a negative, but who knows? I think last thing, I didn't say this about Tom, but that's because Christo is slightly more favoured to do well here. The fact he has a hard doubles draw, they're right up there with Kim Won-ho and Seo-Sun-jae. I think they might even face them in the second round. Does mean that likely they're going to get an early exit there, so you can put more focus on the singles a little earlier, which I think is a positive for both Popov brothers in my eyes. So from one Frenchman to another, Alex Lanier. He didn't have the best of time in the last events, actually pulling out of China to focus on the Worlds following a less than stellar Japan Open, an event he had reached the final in the 2 previous years. So maybe a slight knock there, but he did win the Singapore Open before then, which obviously gives you confidence, and maybe the extra week or so prep for the Worlds is good for him. He's spent some time in Denmark with his new best training bud, Anders Andersen. They seem to be doing a lot of training together. I saw them in Japan together in one of Anders' vlogs, and obviously now Christo is over there. I know Denmark do invite a lot of other players from around Europe. Obviously, Brian Yang was there. I've seen in doubles some English pairs and a few others. So they usually get a little camp together to train towards the Worlds. So maybe those sessions will definitely help him. He's had a bit of an up and down year. He was struggling psychologically before the Thomas Cup after his losses in the All England and the Euros. There was even a report that he was going to reach out to Victor Axelsen to get some advice. But the Thomas Cup certainly boosted him, and this showed, like I mentioned earlier, in the Singapore Open where he won. Like Christo, his draw isn't easy. Dare I say, possibly more difficult. Misha Zilberman can certainly give him a game, although probably not as hard as Nishimoto. But Teratsikon, that's a very, very difficult match. Although I wouldn't say quickly, don't overlook Kalle Kolonian of Finland, who Panichapon has to play first round. He's another one of those former European bronze medalists and has beaten the likes of Aya Shetty and Cho Jin Chen in recent times. So he certainly can play well. But still, I think it's quite likely it'll be Teratsikon and Lanier that will face off each other in the third round. And in a head-to-head, it is 2-1 to Panichapon. All 3 matches have been in 2026, the last 2 being wins for the Thai. That could give him a huge psychological boost. Terratsukan did withdraw versus Xiu Qi in the China Open recently, something I think it was with his chest, but I've heard no further reports if it is. I've heard no further reports that it is too serious. Probably precautionary, maybe even an illness. So I do expect a fully fit Terratsukan. The last thing with Terratsukan, I think his improvements here have been crazy, and his potential match with Lanier is huge. Super, super excited for that. Now, quickly looking at the bottom section, there are some good players in there. You got Danil Dubavenko of Israel, who's beaten Lee Zijia this year and has won some other European events. And if I recall, Viren Netasingam of Sri Lanka is good too. But I think many will be looking at Lakshya Sen and Kunlavut and Fititsan. Both grew up facing off in the juniors. In fact, actually facing off with Christo Popov as well. And both have had great success in the senior ranks. Both head into the Worlds, probably not brimming with confidence, mainly due to injuries though. So it does leave some question marks against both of them. Lakshya injured his elbow at the Thomas Cup match against Cho Chien Chen, and only recently I've noticed that he's played without an elbow support. So what will his preparations have been like, and what level will we see? For Kunlavitasan in Indonesia and Singapore, he couldn't even finish 6 rallies, so that was just 6 weeks ago. And in Japan and China, he looked healthy, but massively unfit. It was a bit like Lin Chunyi, but even worse, because he'd had even less time. I think he takes time to build his fitness, so I fear, a bit like Lin Chunyi, I wrote in my notes, I don't think we'll see the best of Kunlut until the Asian Games. I actually see this draw as a good chance for Lakshya Sen. I mean, obviously last year he had Xiu Qi in the first round. He is in with the player who has reached the last 3 finals this year in Kunlut Vititsan. But obviously Kunlavut has the question marks against him. Maybe the home crowd can lift him as well. For Kunlavut-san, usually I'd actually see this as a good draw for him. Positive head-to-heads against everyone except Christo, but has won the last meeting against him, which was at the Thomas Cup. But I have serious questions over his fitness. He looked tired and unable to sustain his level in both Japan and China. But maybe 4 weeks is enough time for him to gain that back. He can play other styles because of his incredible technical skills, but with a number of players in this section being fast, aggressive players, he can't sit back. He's going to have to go on the front foot. So in Japan, he had to do that against Yushi Tanaka because you can't sit back against a guy that's attacking like him, and he just wasn't able to sustain it. So it'd be interesting to see what Kunlavut can bring. But, and I've said this before about experience, 3 world finals in a row. You can't overlook that. It's going to be difficult for him to reach 4 and match Lindan's record. Lee Chong-wei technically doesn't have that record, although he did, because his 2014 one was taken away from him for his ban, his doping violation. So, yes. Okay, prediction-wise, I have actually picked, again, I had 2. I had Christo and Kunlavut. I've already mentioned, I think with Kunlavut, maybe it's because I really like him as a player. I just think that he'll be a bit fitter than he was. And with the fact that he's a big tournament player, I think he can always find ways to win. It's hard to beat him, but there's too many question marks. So I picked out of it. I know his draw is tough, but Christo Popov, a very tough path, potentially one of the toughest. But I think, like I said earlier, this could be a good thing for him. Keeps him sharp from round 1 and will constantly be building confidence. His performance in Japan was amazing. In China, he looked like someone not 100% fit, which I think was because he had only just come back to training. So with more training, a good block, his great team, which was brimming with confidence, I think this leads nicely to a good performance at the World Championships. Very tough challenges ahead of him, but he has the ability to deal with that. So that's it in terms of my preview and prediction for the World Championships in the men's singles, and actually means my predictions and previews for the whole of the tournament are also done. Only thing left for me to do is to pick a dark horse, and I've actually got 2. Starting with one who's actually in this section, and that is Panichapon Terratsukan. He's a very dangerous player, always improving. He's had a great year and is going from strength to strength. I also think he has that level of self-belief that can help. It is his world debut, but I reckon he'll play like it isn't. He'll play like a veteran. And I think my other one, maybe it's because I just really like him, is Yushi Tanaka. I think the only question mark for him is the belief for him that can he go deep. He's got a tough opening round against Wang Hongyang, really tough. But if he shows anything like the level that he showed at the Japan Open, he's going to be very difficult to beat. He's going to be very, very awkward. And I think he can do well against most of those players in that section, which is a tough section. They're all really good net players, but Yushi is phenomenal there. And I do see all those players as not the greatest defensive players, or definitely players that can be exposed in the defensive situation. Definitely a few of those in that section anyway. So I've gone for Yushi Tanaka as well. So 2 dark horses. So Yushi Tanaka and Penichipon Teratsukan. And then add to that, I've gone for Aoi Farhan, Anders Antonsen, Victor Lai, and and Christo Popov. So actually, only 1 out of the 4 are seeded to meet the semi. So there goes my concerns that I was just going to pick numbers 1 to 4. But men's singles is incredibly tough. So that's it. Thank you for watching, everyone. As always, please give me your own thoughts on everything I've said. Add more context. Tell me your own predictions. And yeah, I've been speaking. I've done 5 disciplines back to back because I'm releasing these day by day, but I've recorded them back to back. And I've been talking for 3 hours. My jaw hurts like absolute hell. So appreciate it. Send me some love. Give the like, share the video, do whatever. All good. Anyway, thanks everyone. The next video you'll see me in will probably be the breakdown after the Worlds. Like I said last time after my last breakdown of Japan and China, that I am working on a video for Thomas, based around Thomas Cup with Indonesia and Malaysia. It's been a bit, had to be put on the back foot because I've had so many things. I did the 3-hour breakdown, then I interviewed Victor Lai. I've got this. I'm working on, I've got other work. I still coach, obviously. There's obviously work leading into the Worlds with these videos, and I'm doing lots of other things throughout the world. So it's been a busy period, but hopefully next week, now I've done these videos, and as they release, I can spend that whole week focusing on that, and maybe I'll be able to get that done as well to release after the World. So it'll be in that little dull period after, where everyone's craving some badminton content. Your boy Ben Beckman will be there to deliver. But anyway, I'm going to sign off. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.